Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to Lefty's Guns. Today I'm going to talk about what it means to be a first responder. Now when I throw out that term, many people's brains will automatically first respond by thinking of police, firefighters, or emergency medical technicians. Really, I'm talking about an idea that's even bigger than that. Stay tuned. Now, when I say first responders, many people will immediately assume that I'm talking about civil employees who are hired specifically to respond to emergencies or frightening situations, whether that entails crime or medical emergencies or a variety of other things. People assume that that's who I'm talking about. Now, it's true that these people are hired specifically to respond to these type of things, but are they really first responders? Are they really there first? In any given situation, let's look at who is actually more likely to be on the scene first. It's you or me. It's the observant citizen who notices something out of the norm, who notices something that needs to be handled differently, and that there may be danger or somebody who needs to be helped in a given situation. So if a first responder could be you or could be me or anyone who recognizes that a situation requires specialized tactical attention, could anyone be a first responder? Well, anyone could be, but most people are not. I am always amazed at the number of people who will see an emergency situation and just stare blindly like a deer in headlights, confused, not knowing how to react, not knowing what to do, or the number of people who will simply drive by, maybe give it a casual glance and decide, it's not my problem. Either I've hired police to take care of this, or somebody else will react, somebody will help them out, but I have somewhere to be. It's not my problem. And that's specifically what I want to address today. Last night I was driving home about midnight, and I was on my way through a part of town that has a lot of restaurants and bars, and it's just kind of a happening part of town with lots of things to do. And I was driving through that part of town, and I immediately noticed a traffic accident. And it was a bad one. It was two cars, an older car and a real new fancy Mercedes, and both were just completely mangled and torn apart. And there were two people standing out in the middle of the road. Both of them were pulling out their cell phones. They both looked kind of shaken up and rattled, and no one else had stopped. And I thought that was really interesting. Obviously the police weren't on scene yet. Firefighters or EMTs hadn't been called, but there were tons of people out and about. There were people coming out of restaurants and clubs, and lots of people on that same street simply steering around the wreckage, trying carefully so that their tires didn't run over any debris in the road that might damage their tires. And this is something I want to address. It is our duty as humans to look out for one another. If I'm in a situation where I'm doing all right, and I see a neighbor who is potentially in need or is potentially hurting, it's our duty to respond and help them out. So I pulled into this situation, and I noticed nobody else had stopped. I stopped and talked to both drivers, made sure everybody was okay, nobody was seriously hurt. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn or saying, look, I stopped when no one else did. Certainly not. I'm saying that what I did was actually very little and very simple, and it's something that absolutely anybody could do. And it's sad that fewer people do it. Now, I didn't even render any first aid to these folks. I basically just talked to one of the drivers, calmed him down, and kind of helped him figure out if we could push his car out of the way. It turns out one of his wheels was so mangled and bent that pushing it was out of the question. And soon after I was there and had kind of talked to people for a little bit, a police officer had arrived on scene. I'd never called the police, so I figured somebody else driving by had probably seen the wreck, and that was their contribution to the situation is, oh, well, let me call the authorities. Let me bring the law into this to see if we can either help these people or just figure this out, or maybe even just get these cars out of my way. So the police arrived, and the first thing the officer did, he kind of walked through the scene. He looked at one car that was damaged, looked at the other car that was damaged, and immediately asked for driver's license, insurance, and registration information for both drivers. He took that information and went back to his black and white squad car and immediately called that in and started running a search for warrants or for any information that he might need to know in this situation. And that kind of brings me to another point. When we think first responders and we think of police, yeah, they're going to respond to the crime, but their job is ultimately to enforce the law. Police are not required to help you. Police are not required to protect you, and police are not required to serve you. Even if the side of their car says to protect and serve, it has constitutionally been ruled that the duty of police is not to protect others above themselves. It is to enforce the law. So if that is your only response, is to think, oh, well, there might be something bad going on there, let me call the police. Well, the first thing the police are going to do, yeah, they're going to look for the emergency situation, and hopefully they're going to identify any dangers and give people medical attention. But the real reason they're there and what they're ultimately held liable for is enforcing the law. And so that's where I want to call people to just be a good neighbor. And if you see something like this, if you see it happen, be a witness. If you see somebody hurting, give them first aid. If you see somebody who can just even be calmed down a little bit, just help them out. Anybody can do this. Now, I know many of my fans are strong advocates for concealed carry or even open carry, just the idea of carrying a weapon on your person for self-defense. Now, if you subscribe to that mentality, which many people do, and if you don't, you should probably think about it just to critically analyze it. In any situation where somebody was going to assault you or cause harm to you, who's the first responder? Well, it's obviously not the police, it's you. It's you pulling a weapon to defend yourself. Now, we think about that pretty easily when it comes to terms of self-defense. I am defending myself, and I'm obviously going to be the first person there because it's myself, it's my person, who is there to respond to it. We need to think about these things not just in terms of self-defense, but in terms of the wide variety of things that could happen in everyday life. On YouTube, I follow James Yeager's channel, that's Tactical Response. He's a teacher at a school that teaches emergency combat preparedness. And he always ends every video with a tagline that says, "Your responsibility to be ready for the fight never ends." And for concealed carry or open carry or carrying a weapon for self-defense, that makes a lot of sense. That's why we think, everyday carry. Always be prepared wherever I go, always carry, be ready to defend myself. But I would personally suggest amending that statement to just say, your responsibility to be ready never ends. Not necessarily for the fight, because a lot of times that's a responsibility to be ready to help someone, or to address a situation that requires attention, or even to just look out for your neighbor. So whether it's reacting to a violent crime by either defending yourself or defending somebody else, or just rendering help to somebody in need, your responsibility to be ready doesn't end. Now, I know this video is kind of a rant, and I know I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg on several different things here, but ultimately the point of this video is the old Boy Scout motto, be prepared. Now, I'm not saying bring your full bug out bag or bring every bit of survival gear with you wherever you go. Certainly not. There are a lot of simple everyday carry items that could really make a difference in your ability to help someone else or help yourself versus not having them and not being able to make a difference and help yourself or someone else. So as you're thinking about this, keep this in the back of your head. Think about what items could help me or what mentally can help me just to be prepared. As you're going about your daily life, be situationally aware. Look around, look for others in need, look for situations that could be bettered by your ability to react to them. Because most likely, in everything you see, the first responder is going to be you.